good and a great event. Creating this wow factor, as we like to call it, is something that will create that difference. Your audience is typically part of your tribe. They've come to your URL to experience your event. Now, while your audience could experience your broadcast within the context of a social media platform or even a cookie-cutter platform, in such scenarios, often the platform itself becomes a dominant part of the experience. You are in essence meeting in, say, Facebook's building rather than your own. Now, those of the utilitarian mindset may not care for this design aspect, yet I believe, and all of us at the Sardius team believe, that it's important to think about the following components in a similar way to the way that you would consider the component parts of an in-person event. Considering the video, the user interface, which we call the UI, which is typically more about the design aspect, the user experience or UX, which is typically more about the functionality of the platform, as well as the timing of the overall presentation that altogether determines the quality and the wow factor of your event. Now, Sardius can adopt a number of approaches when it comes to design and UI and the whole graphic design process. The first approach that we take is that we do everything. Sardius always provides the user experience functionality related to how the event works, and we can also offer professional design services, which can be limited to simply the user interface of the main watch experience, but could also be extended to creating a unique brand guide with logos, graphical assets, motion graphic assets to avoid the workload for many busy design departments, or create a unique interface for smaller organizations that may or may not have a design department. Approach 2 is that you rely for graphic design on your tried and tested in-house designers or design agency. We are very intimately aware of the visceral effect of design and how much brand and design matter to design teams and agencies of so many of the larger organizations that we work with. Outsourcing design to a new company for what may be a large communication opportunity for your organization may not be the road that you want to travel at this particular time. And that's perfectly fine. In such situations, Sardius provides your design team with the different wireframe templates and options and previous examples of event layouts and user experiences that have been successful in our experience, and invite your design team to dream about what your brand would look like in the most optimal situation, often creating a flat design that then our team brings to life. The third approach is a more modular approach for perhaps more budget-minded clients. For those more conscious of time and budget, there are also more modular approaches that we can offer in this situation, giving you dimensions of some of the design elements that are needed to be populated for an event. In this case, it will still feel like you customized, as you will be responsible for colors, images, and design elements. However, it is a stripped down approach. A list of design elements that you need to provide will be given to you by your event manager. Regardless of how the user interface is created, there are many design type elements that you will need to provide to our project management team that will be used to build the event out, and your event manager will provide you with that list. Coupled with an excellently designed user interface which effectively communicates your brand is the schedule and structure of the event, and considerations of when to present certain components of the event. Now, we take the approach that an effective online event is not a static web page with a library of video and other information that the attendee gets to navigate through on their own time, although there is a time and a place for this type of experience, and a component of it may even be part of your live event. But rather, an effective online event, in much the same way as an in-person event, is a shared experience of different event sessions that are served to the attendees in real time in much the same way that an in-person event happens. Most events consist of main plenary sessions, breakout seminar tracks, and other type meetings. These sessions form the backbone of the event in terms of content delivery. Therefore, it's important to consider a number of factors in delivering the most optimal experience for your attendees. The run sheet or stage and content order. Before considering anything technical, one of the most important tasks you as the event producer will have to undertake is developing your event run sheet. This will require you to think through your overall event purpose and metrics, what you're trying to achieve in different parts of the event, and how do you want to structure the communications and the content flow of the event to achieve those goals. Now, traditional in-person entertainment will often build towards the best entertainer who is topping the bill, which typically happens last or close to the end of the event. While you might consider this, it may also be helpful to think of your entire event in the same way that you would consider a single presentation. Create a story arc that ultimately underlines your calls to action more effectively or helps you train your audience in sequence. One of the main benefits of online events is the ability to include presenters from around the world in a way that would not be possible if they had to travel to your event at an in-person location. There are a number of effective softwares and simple templates available to help you manage your minute-by-minute run sheet for the event. Just be aware that despite all of your careful planning, many, maybe most, run sheets won't go exactly as planned, especially if you're broadcasting significant portions of your event live. Broadcasting your event live has many exciting and important psychological benefits, of which I love, but predictability isn't one of those benefits. It's important to plan for the unexpected in your run sheet. Allowing for the unpredictable in your online schedule is something that you should be aware of. Sardius gives you the ability to create very complex event schedules ahead of time, which you will need to do. However, if you have the unexpected changes to your schedule at the last minute, you need to ensure that you are hosting your event on a platform that allows you to make last-minute changes, rather than the event being significantly cached on the attendee's machine. Sardius allows you to make those last-minute changes and work them seamlessly into the flow of your event. Now let's turn to the video production of the event. Typically for an in-person and a hybrid event, it's recognized that video production must be of a certain quality level. The same realization is not always recognized with exclusively online events. With the proliferation of video conferencing platforms, video quality often isn't given as much thought until the audience is struggling trying to follow a presenter who has filmed his presentation on his mobile phone with bad video and audio. And when we speak of video production quality, we're speaking of video camera quality, audio quality, lighting quality, background quality, and finally, broadcasting quality. Often with online events, the event producer is having to deal with presenters from diverse geographical locations. In the past, may have only been the preserve of outside broadcasts on newscasts of election coverage. Without having to produce full-on TV quality, here are a few suggestions to produce the best quality video for your event and mitigate against some of the inherent risks. Number 1, obtain a central location to film and broadcast from. Most individuals don't have access to high-quality video production gear. Now, this has changed somewhat in the post-COVID world, and even if you do, it is often wise to have a second set of eyes as a video producer to ensure quality production. If you obtain a central location to shoot the event with a higher quality production level, better equipment and tech personnel, and invite your key presenters to this location, you can limit your exposure to bad video. Secondly, pre-record the segments of your event where you're broadcasting a video conference conversation. There may be legitimate reasons why you need to broadcast a low latency video connection live. For example, if you require a live feedback interaction with the audience. If you don't, it may be wise to pre-record this segment, which gives you the ability to get better quality video, which could possibly be edited if there are any mistakes or video dropouts. Thirdly, ensure key presenters have better quality video recording and broadcasting equipment. The success of your event may be dependent upon certain key presenters. If they cannot be at the central location, then try and ensure that they have access to better quality video production. This might involve them traveling to a studio close to them, or it may involve providing them with better cameras, lighting, audio, perhaps a backdrop that they can record their presentation independently. Even if it is part of a live video conference conversation, this can be edited for a later simulated live broadcast. Now let's talk about broadcasting and the live or the simulated live question. The subject of whether your event should be broadcast live or pre-recorded and broadcast at a simulated live event is highly connected to the structure of your event. Having bad video can be a make or break for an online event. Therefore, this is a consistent question that the Sardius team discusses with our clients. There are a number of pros and cons to each approach. Let's talk about live. But it is these very limitations that make live events popular. It creates a psychological buzz, it results in bigger audiences, and it creates the ability to create finances through mechanisms like pay-per-view. You only have to look at the audiences for live sporting events to realize that there is a massive benefit in watching live versus the simulated live broadcast several hours later. Now, even outside of the sporting realm, live broadcasts have a certain cachet that results in bigger audiences, and despite the inherent risks involved, which we'll talk about, they give you some opportunities that are not available with simulated live or video on demand. These largely boil down to live audience engagement. And this includes interaction with questions from the audience who are posting in chat or via video conferencing, the ability to poll or to ask your audience questions and get in-the-moment responses. The risks connected to live broadcasting are related to two main factors. The first of these is the unpredictable and complex nature of an event schedule, which can mean a much bigger production budget to ensure that there are no errors in the broadcast. Secondly, the reliability of your broadcast setup, which may include all your video conferencing connections, but it's mainly related to your video streaming encoding solution and your internet connection. While Sardius can and does work with many encoding solutions, there are a few that we recommend depending on the nature of your event. These include Resi, Haivision, Telestream, and a few more that we can talk about. If you're unfamiliar with the world of web streaming, it may be advisable for Sardius to handle the streaming portion of your event. For one-off events, we will typically use Resi as our live streaming partner due to the resilience of their streaming protocol in many event situations. One of the most frustrating possibilities in a live streamed event is the audience having to deal with buffering issues. Mitigating the possibility of buffering is something we advise repeatedly and believe one of the best ways to do this is by using HLS streaming, simulated live. Despite the cachet that's involved in live streaming, this may not be the right way for you to go for a number of reasons. Live broadcasts, if done well, can often cost more in terms of video production and streaming and can cause you a lot of stress due to the inherent risks involved. Some thrive on this risk, others don't. Another approach can be to pre-record your program and then broadcast it as if it's live. This is often called a simulated or sim live broadcast. If you are not interacting live with your audience and there is no difference between what your live broadcast would look like and a broadcast that is pre-recorded, there are a number of benefits. Added to the reduced risk and potentially reduced cost, it also gives you an opportunity to broadcast at times that are convenient for your audience across different times of the day and even different time zones. Simulated live broadcasts also give your presenters an ability to interact in real time with the audience within the chat window, which can actually make an extremely compelling experience. They are presenting by video, but they are responding in real time in chat. Let's talk about copyrights for a moment. It's important in building your event that you have the correct permissions to broadcast the content your schedule dictates to your audience for the duration of the time that you wish to broadcast. This means it's important, if you intend to live broadcast and keep the archive of the session afterwards, that you have the correct permissions of the on-camera individuals. If you're broadcasting music, it's important that you obtain the correct performance and broadcast permissions ahead of time. If you need help navigating this, you can talk with your Saudis event manager who can point you in the right direction. Let's talk about user interface features for a moment. Every organization has internal language, behaviors, assumptions, and personalities. Operating within an organization for an extended period can blind you to such internalized communication. Yet this can be confusing to visitors and new attendees to your event. There are simple methods of presenting information that can provide clarity and context to your event and which can orient your audience to help them quickly understand what is going on and ultimately help them understand you. These components include bios. Who is presenting now? Why should I listen to them? How can I connect with them through social links and other web calls to action? And how does their inclusion in the event add to the overall purpose of the event? Saudis typically recommends you include headshots, bios, and links to your presenters. And we can provide the total list of presenters or pop-out modals, which will change throughout the event as your presenters on stage change. Secondly, the schedule. Providing a clear schedule for the event is a must. We typically do this two ways, with an at-a-glance approach as well as providing an interactive timeline under the main video player, which progresses throughout the event and gives the ability for the audience to see where they are at within the context of the whole event. Calls to action, or CTAs, are highly related to your main purpose and the metrics of success for your event. These should generally be decided ahead of time. You shouldn't overload your audience with CTAs, but they are super helpful in being clear with your audience about what you would like them to do, so don't leave them out. And once they're determined, you can include them in many parts of the event and the event platform, from presentations in the main session, to linked overlays, to handouts, to things in the chat window. However, within the main watch experience, this might take the form of prominent text, graphics leading to a landing page, which can help your audience respond in an appropriate manner. So these are just some of the things that you need to think about as you create a clear, effective production of your online event. Let's go through the checklist. There's a reason why the framers of the US Constitution included the right of the people to peaceably assemble in the First Amendment. The reason is that history changes when people gather and exchange ideas. Be it the early church who gathered 2,000 years ago to the recent gatherings of the Arab Spring. Countries change, companies change, and individuals change when people gather, often providing the high watermarks of our lives. Just think about it. My bet is that your life has been changed by an event where people gathered, you exchanged ideas, and your life changed as a result. Well, hi, I'm John O'Hall. I'm with Sardius Media, and I want to take you on a journey over these next few videos to help you ask the right questions about your proposed event and ultimately get you the right answers. As you consider your upcoming event, you may not be thinking of an outcome as earth-shattering as those historical events I just mentioned. After all, you may only be planning your quarterly leadership gathering of your organization, the annual get-together. However, if you really want to achieve the change you so dearly would love to see in your organization or movement, perhaps the event you are planning can create the momentum that you so desperately need. You just need to be intentional about it, and that is what these videos and this guide is all about. Now, of course, I'm representing Sardius Media, and in these videos, it's a given that we're going to be leaning pretty heavily in the direction of what makes a great online event. However, I'm hopeful that the journey we go on will be helpful no matter what type of event you're putting on. The questions we ask throughout these videos will hopefully lead you to clarity regarding what you want to achieve and how you can achieve it. We'll move from one video to the next, from big picture questions to the more technical online aspects of your event. We're rooting for your event success and hope that the following video and guide will help you navigate these waters. I'm looking forward to our time together. Let's get into it. Often when you're starting to think about your event, you have something in your mind. Maybe it's a full room, a conference center, or a stadium buzzing with life and activity. And immediately, what typically happens is you go into planning mode to see how you can achieve that goal. But I want to encourage you to go back just a little bit further before we begin the planning phase and ask some more existential questions. So number one, I want to figure out your why. Whether you're having an in-person event or an online event, one of the first things you need to determine is what exactly the metrics of your success are in the event. These metrics are not primarily related to the number of people attending the event, although getting a big crowd may certainly be connected to your metrics. If you're hosting a product or a service launch, your ultimate goal will be related to the sales that are derived from this event. The amount of people who attend the event may therefore be a key indicator of success, but getting the wrong crowd that results in very few sales may lead you to adjust your strategy later on. In this regard, just getting the big crowd might make you feel good in the moment, but it would be more helpful for your team to talk about the real metric of sales and plan towards that particular goal. Now, if your goal is to communicate your vision to your super fans, your radical core audience, having a huge crowd with hundreds of thousands of people may surprisingly actually work against your main metric. If your audience wants to be addressed as if they are the only one that matters, including them just as one of the many thousands of the audience may be a bad idea. So I want you to think deeply about the metric of success, whether it's online or in person, and work with your team to achieve that particular goal. Now, let's translate some of these thoughts to putting on an online event. Now, in the TV industry, getting the eyeballs is a key indicator of success. Large numbers are also attractive to online broadcasters as they can result in advertising revenue. The strategy for engaging your audience online may be the same, simply gathering a big crowd. And if a simple big crowd is the objective, then maybe the right strategy is simply to go out on all the platforms like YouTube and Facebook. But if you're really honest with yourself and think about it, your goal is probably more than simply the eyeballs. And so when you think about it, there are some limitations to that strategy. Maybe you don't want to simply give away all your audience's data to those particular social media platforms. Maybe you want to serve them yourself. And that's why we're seeing the emergence of many OTT media platforms. Previously, you would watch content through the major media outlets, ABC, NBC, BBC, now Facebook and YouTube. And now the content makers are going, quote unquote, over the top to reach their markets directly. Think about Disney Plus, Discovery Plus, and the multitude of other niche brand video channels who are engaging their core audience directly. Getting to know who your core audience is, your super fans, your radical core, and engaging them around topics that are relevant to their life may be a more efficient and effective way to energize your people, who will then leave the event and immediately sell the vision to 10 more of their friends and therefore grow your superfan radical core. Now, choosing the right type of event is important. There are different types of people, there are different types of objectives, there are different types of events. It's important to understand the difference between meetings. In some meetings, you need to achieve deep collaboration between attendees, while other gatherings are about gathering as many people as you can to mobilize them behind a specific vision. Sometimes you need an intimate fundraising banquet, and other times it's a rock concert that you're after. There's no right type of event which is better than another, but it is important to recognize what you're trying to achieve and choose the right medium to communicate exactly what you need to. Now, there generally is a right type of event for what your present needs are, and you shouldn't spend a whole bunch of time and money and then later on realize that you've made a poor choice to achieve the desired goals. And so that is why I want to encourage you to be intentional in figuring out the right medium. The rationale and motivation for an online event is just as important as the rationale and motivation for an in-person physical event. There's not one type of online event that you have to go down. It's often possible to mimic the aspects of a physical in-person event when you're having an online equivalency. However, it's important to recognize the differences between online and in-person events. Simply being online means you are communicating in another medium, and while this offers many benefits over in-person events, there are similarly many elements that cannot and shouldn't be reproduced. Online communication is better for intense, effective, focused, interactive information sharing, as well as focused networking, one-on-one meetings. While physical events can be much better for creating space and time, more serendipitous networking, having meals, coffees, and walks. Similarly, you will never experience the intense, ear-bleeding, emotionally high experience of being in a mosh pit at a concert online. However, you can experience a perhaps more intimate, artistic experience through a broadcast feed. It's also important that you think in a correct manner about your financial budget. It is so possible for you to lose a significant amount of money in organizing a large-scale event. However, it is important also for you to consider the financial aspects in the right way. As with many endeavors in life, it's also important not to underestimate the potential financial benefits and use false economy in planning your event. Many of the components of a successful event will involve spending, and this includes your stage lineup, your production budget, or broadcast distribution budget. Often your event will only be as strong as the weakest link. For example, you may decide to go big on funding a high-end speaker or band and then skimp on the production budget. In most scenarios, this would be a bad decision. And the same is true for online delivery of your event. There are some amazing solutions being offered on the market at the moment, and it's important that you don't skimp on providing an amazing experience for your audience. Now, we have advised many event coordinators who are hosting large events, and often the first component that is considered is the lineup of presenters on stage. Maybe it's famous bands and speakers who will have the ability to gather a crowd. Gifted and charismatic stage personalities are great, and they may form a component of your overall strategy. However, it's imperative that before you invite any presenters, you are clear about your metrics and your narrative. Now, the narrative is the story behind your event, the reason why your audience will want to attend your event rather than the other events where the same speakers and the bands will be attending. Discovering your narrative is typically a process which begins with discovering your why in hosting the event and the why your attendees have for attending. Now, following tried and trusted methods of storytelling and communicating your narrative is helpful for both in-person and for online events. Thinking of your potential attendees as the hero of the story that you are inviting them into, and with you as the trusted guide, is ultimately helpful to all parties and the vision which you would like to invite the attendees into. It may be that you're giving your audience a unique experience and opportunity to get involved in the most life-changing movement. And if that is true, you need to recognize and find ways to communicate that vision that involves your audience. This narrative must be communicated through your event brand guide and your written and video communication as you promote your event. Now, while this is true of all events, it is helpful not to miss this element when it comes to planning your online event, and consider the unique online methods to respond to this narrative. Determining your stage lineup. Who can communicate your goals most effectively in spoken, written, or musical form? Often the impetus, even the existence of an event, comes from the lineup of speakers, subject matter experts, influencers, and musical artists. While this may be the main hook to gather a big audience, the simple ability to gather an attractional stage lineup should not determine your event. The why and the narrative should always come first. Individuals or groups who present or perform from your stage need to serve that particular vision and narrative. And if this doesn't happen, there is a possibility that you, your audience, and your guest speaker will come away from this event feeling used, and this lack of cohesion almost never achieves the worthwhile purposes for which you started out. Now, when considering either a hybrid or a completely online event, it's important to consider the different mediums of communication you're employing. A stage in front of 50,000 people in an arena versus small screens in front of 1 million people are two entirely different mediums. Although the latter is reaching a much bigger audience, a small screen is always a much more intimate medium and requires an approach where the audience is being addressed in a more direct, one-on-one manner, much like I'm doing now. When considering your lineup, also consider how you're going to communicate to both audiences most effectively, and consider how your lineup is going to do this. Audience engagement is important in both mediums of communication. Now, it's clear to all of us that the world was taken by surprise by the COVID-19 pandemic. And the one question that we've received more than any others throughout this time is predicated on the longing to return to in-person events, but then people say how things will change in a post-COVID world with regard to online events. And our response has long been that we also long for the return to in-person events that we're seeing now. However, online events are not going away. Even before COVID, the online component of events was increasingly in demand, and the complexity was also increasing. So this is an area you shouldn't ignore for too much longer. So that's pretty much all there is for this section. So let's go through our checklist. In this session, we're going to go through all the considerations that you need to think about in relationship to producing your online event. When you design a large in-person event, much thought is often given not only to the content that is delivered from the stage in the main plenaries, but also to the design of the stage and the main auditorium. Also critical is the decor, flow, and hospitality from registration through the main sessions, the breakout seminars, the layout and the movement flow of attendees moving from main session to the exhibition hall, let's say, and finally, the time and the spacing between sessions. All of this process, along with thousands of other considerations unique to your organization, takes time and consideration. The bottom line is the way that the event is designed communicates to attendees their value and the value of the experience. Design gives us the opportunity and the ability to create the correct emotion